Hey guys, it's Tiffany Boyd with Free Your Children. I wanted to jump on here and give everyone an update about HB 1214. I had an opportunity to speak with Representative Ritchie this afternoon or this evening, and he had some updates to give me regarding this. First, I'm sure that everyone is aware of the events that transpired at the Capitol today in Tennessee. And so earlier in the day, when that happened, I was wondering how this would affect our rally that we have scheduled for next Wednesday, April the 5th, when this bill is going to be heard in the Education Administration Committee. So what has happened now is this bill is on the calendar to still be heard on April the 5th, but they have moved the time. So as of right now, this one is going to be heard at 9 a.m. in the morning on April the 5th. And it was 1:30. So it's really early in the morning. There's two meetings for the Education Administration Committee that day. The first one is at 9, and then they're having a subsequent meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon on that same day. This particular bill, HB 1214, is the very first thing that they have on the agenda. So, you know, a lot of us feel like this was moved really early in the morning to prevent us from coming to the Capitol. Representative Ritchie said it's very, very important for everyone to show up, and we actually need more people now showing up than we did the first time and that had planned on it initially, because now all this has transpired at the Capitol, so the attention is being removed, so to speak, from our rally and being placed on all these side issues that are going on. So he said, what you saw today at the Capitol, 1,000 folks or so that was there, he said, I would encourage your group to have even more people there. Of course, not behaving in the manner that they behaved in. We will be peaceful and we will be professional, but we need to show up in large numbers so that we will be taken seriously. Because now a lot of the attention is going to be going toward these issues that happened today and the manner that it was handled in. And you know, he said it's on the calendar at 9 o'clock, but they could wind up bumping it to the 1:30 meeting as well. So plan on coming, plan on being there from 9 in the morning until 1:30 in the afternoon. He also said that when you make your phone calls, please don't focus on homeschooling anymore. Read all the information that I have posted in the rally to find out the other issues with this bill and focus on those issues, because here's the thing. They're going to do everything in their power, we believe, to try to push this legislation through, because they want the ability to build these boarding charter schools, these charter boarding schools. So they're going to continue to push forward with this legislation. So we need to let them know that there's still other issues with the bill that we're concerned with. And so you need to share this information with your friends and your neighbors, specifically those that don't homeschool, so that they can get a better grasp on why this bill is not good for anyone. Do they want charter boarding schools in their neighborhood with children that are on parole or probation? And I posted in this event, in this rally event, responses that Cameron Sexton, Speaker of the House, this is his bill, had sent to a particular person who had sent him emails regarding this. You need to read those responses. I had to do multiple posts because in the event it wouldn't allow me to put all 3 screenshots in one post. So read through and you'll get a feel of the angle that he's trying to pursue in order to push this legislation through. I have written a piece for the Murfreesboro Pulse, the Borough Pulse, that has now been published, and I've shared it, and it is a synopsis of everything that happened, concerns that people should have. This is not just a homeschooling bill. This is an example of why school choice is so dangerous, particularly, and not just for homeschoolers. This is why it's dangerous in general, and there needs to be mass education on this topic. I actually just recorded one of my radio shows this morning with a leader of Mache. That is a Minnesota Christian homeschooling organization, and he is the executive director, and he shared legislation that they have been fighting, school choice legislation that they have been fighting in Minnesota because it threatened their homeschool freedoms. So we spoke at length about that this morning, and I'm very excited to share his interview on that particular show, because there needs to be mass education as to why this type of agenda is dangerous and why it seeks to destroy true private education. There's lots of conservatives that do not understand this concept. There's lots of homeschool families that don't understand this concept. And this piece of legislation is a perfect example as to why this is dangerous and what happens when you let the Trojan horse into the room. And so we've got to educate. We've got to start calling. We've got to let our legislators know the reasons why we don't want this bill, why we want it to die. And you can read through the post in this event to get a good idea of some things that you could discuss with them. But the most important thing is Representative Ritchie just reiterated the fact that we need to show up in large numbers, because attention is diverted now on other things, particularly what went on at the Capitol today. So we need to let our lawmakers understand that we still are very resigned to the fact that we are very passionate about the fact that we do not want HB1214 to be passed. So we need to show up together as a group. We need to be extremely professional, and we need to be very, I guess what we really need to do is make as many phone calls as possible and show up and let them know that we all stand together on this and the reasons why we do not want this bill to pass. I'm still passing to law, and I'm still on the agenda to speak. I guess I'm going to make sure with Representative White's office. I haven't checked my email lately, but I haven't, as far as I know, received any email correspondence from them that the time has been changed, but it has been changed. We are also watching legislation closely too to see if this pops up in another bill. There's so much has gone on today, and there were lots of bill numbers mentioned. Representative Ritchie said when they first opened up, and then of course it just went wild up there. And I'm sure if you've been watching the news, you know what happened today in Nashville at the state capitol. So he just said that attention has been kind of drifted away from this scenario, and now it's divided up into all these other issues that are going on, and we need to keep a laser focus on this particular legislation. And so we need to make sure that we show up in large numbers to let them know how we feel about this particular bill. Someone had asked me in the thread earlier if we could talk to them about the bill before 9 o'clock. Well, not in the committee, because the committee meeting actually starts at 9, and this is supposed to be the first thing on the agenda that morning. So you would have to be there at 9, and if you want to get on the agenda to speak, then that has to be done 24 hours prior to the meeting. But you also need to understand that if they roll it to 1:30, then you're going to have to wait from 9 o'clock that morning until 1:30 in the afternoon for it to go to the next Education Administration Committee meeting. Does anyone have any questions? I was watching the legislation Wednesday because there could have been an opportunity for them to have added it to a caption bill then. And so I had some numbers of bills that I was watching, and I didn't see any of those in any of the committee meetings. So I was hoping that didn't happen, but apparently Representative Ritchie had some concerns, and he said that with everything that was going on there today, they rattled off a bunch of bill numbers this morning and when they first started or convened, and he was going to comb through that too and look and make sure that we haven't missed anything. But he just, again, reiterated the fact that everyone needs to call every single person on the Education Administration Committee, tell them that you want the bill to die, and give them the reasons why, and don't even discuss the homeschooling aspect of it, because they're trying to shoot that down by saying it's been taken out. So focus on some of the other concerns that you have about this bill. But as it stands right now, the The committee meeting is supposed to be at 9 o'clock on April the 5th. So 9 a.m. April the 5th. So that's when we would at this point, with it being so early in the morning, we will just meet in the Education Administration Committee room in Cordell Hall. And I think I need to double check on that, but last time it was in House Hearing Room 1. So I'll make sure that that's where they're still meeting as well. But we would just go straight to the Education Administration Committee room and be there for this particular committee meeting where they're going to bring this bill up. Anyone else with questions? But that's what they're doing. They're still, it appears, in my opinion, that Cameron Sexton has his mind made up that he wants to try to get this legislation ran through because their goal is to open up these public boarding charter schools. And your taxpayers' dollars are going to be funding those. So you need to make sure that if you're not familiar with everything that they're wanting to do and everything that this bill says, go and read the amendments that they have attached to this particular bill. And if you have questions, just let me know. I'll try to answer them the best that I can. Read the different things that I have posted in the rally and read the article that I have just recently penned as well, because it expresses concerns. And make sure that you look at the comments from Cameron Sexton to the lady that sent emails about asking for this bill to die. I feel like this bill has just been slammed together and no one knows much about it because it's pieced together. It's going to raise taxes on us. I wish the public would see that. There's lots wrong with this bill. They have an agenda and they are determined that they're going to pass this agenda through. And the biggest agenda here is to get these charter schools, these public boarding charter schools built in communities. And read, like I said, read Cameron Sexton's comments. And yes, and the taxpayers will be funding those. And they could be coming to a community near you with children, clearly from Cameron Sexton's responses, migrant children, children on parole, children on probation. Let's see. Trying to read the comments here. Where can we find his comments again? I posted the screenshots to his comments in the rally. There were 3. I had to do them in separate posts, or you can go to the Free Your Children page where I could make one post with all 3 comments and you can read through those. But the comments were screenshots from emails that a particular person had sent him, and she screenshotted his comments and sent them back because there were concerns about his tone and the way that he answered her. Anyone else have any questions? Right now, one of the things that I am focusing on is one of the many things I'm focusing on is trying to educate homeschool families as to why accepting any type of government funding is always dangerous. And this is a great example of this, because originally the way this bill started out was it was specifically targeting homeschoolers, and it was coming in and trying to give homeschoolers another way to register, another legal option to homeschool. And if you happen to sign your child up under that particular option, that hybrid homeschool option, your child would then be considered a public school student, which would defeat the whole purpose of homeschooling in general. And it had all kinds of requirements if you chose that particular model of homeschooling that were going to go along with that particular option. So, yes, but no doubt they are definitely trying to move this legislation through. I know for a fact that they have been swamped in phone calls in opposition to this bill. So we're going to see from this a very clear picture if our representatives are listening to us and their constituents, or if they are just there to serve their own agendas and lobbyists. Okay. So 9 a.m., April the 5th, in the Education Administration Committee. There are links posted in this rally with all the names and all the contact information of everyone that sits on that Education Administration Committee so that you can call them and specifically give them reasons why you want this bill to die, and don't include anything about homeschooling in it anymore, because they're trying to say that they have struck everything in the bill that is dangerous to homeschooling. And so essentially there should be no problem with the bill. But there's lots and lots of problems with the bill. If you have not watched the other lives that I've posted in this rally, you can go back and watch those. And I go into great detail about what's wrong with the bill and the other issues that are associated with the bill. The whole bill is just terrible. Let's see. I don't think anyone else has any comments. I'm not going to keep you on here long. If I see that the bill has been moved somewhere else, I will make sure that I let everyone know. Just keep checking the rally event for updates. Make sure you make your phone calls. You can send emails too, but also make sure that you make phone calls to everyone on the Education Administration Committee, and Cameron Sexton too, because it's his bill. So make sure you call him and tell him exactly what you think needs to happen, that this bill needs to die and why. And show up April the 5th at 9 a.m. for this committee meeting. What time can we enter the building on Wednesday? I'm not sure exactly what time. I know that the committee meeting starts at 9, so obviously it's going to have to be prior to 9 o'clock. I'm sure the hours are posted. I just haven't looked, and I can't look now because I'm on my phone doing this live. Anyone else have any questions? And in the parking, I'm sure, will be atrocious because most of us will have to commute in with everyone else. You can call Eric. You can just call the Education Administration Committee. The chair. There's a page on the Tennessee government page, and it lists contact information. I've called. That's how I found out exactly where the committee meeting was going to be held and in what room. Or you can just call. Another good way to find out is you can call when you're making your phone call to tell them why you think the bill should die. You can actually ask a representative, and we can ask Representative Ritchie too. I can ask him, and he can give me that information, I'm sure. Yeah, and this whole process, they make this difficult, clearly. And, of course, for those of us that don't live close to Nashville, at 9 o'clock in the morning, we'll be commuting in with everyone else that's trying to get to downtown Nashville to go to work. So that should be fun. And that's what they're hoping. My belief about this is that they've tried to do everything they could to make it as convenient as they can to prevent us from coming. From General Assembly website. The Education Committee has always been at 1:30 p.m. this session. Did they give an excuse? Well, from what I have been told, they're saying that they moved it because they're just trying to get through everything because they have so many bills, I guess, that still have to be heard. But remember, they have there's 2 meetings on Wednesday, April the 5th, for the Education Administration Committee. One's at 9, and then one's at 1:30. So my personal opinion on this is they're going to try to hear the bill that morning, first thing at 9 o'clock, and just ram it on through in hopes that none of us show up. That's just what I think. So that's one reason why we need to come out in large numbers and show that we stand in solidarity in our belief that this bill needs to die. And then we need to just swamp them with telephone calls, emails. And if you haven't already, so none of our side will have a chance to speak. I'm actually on the agenda to speak at the Education Administration Committee meeting. So whenever this bill is going to be heard, which now is supposed to be at 9 o'clock on April the 5th, all of my information, because I signed up for last week when they rolled it to April the 5th. Representative White's office told me that all of my information will roll, so I should still be on the agenda to give my testimony in opposition to the bill. But and I will say this too, I wasn't the only one that was supposed to speak. I think Representative Ritchie told me that he had 10 other people that were supposed to speak. So he had 10 people that was on the agenda to be speaking, and then I was supposed to speak. Yes, Eric, you should be able to sign up. You will have to contact Chairman White. Representative White is the chair of the committee, and so you will have to contact his office, and then you have to go through the steps to be allowed to speak. You have to fill out paperwork. They have to send it to you, and you have to fill it out and get it back to them. As long as you do it, I think she told me 24 hours prior, you should be allowed to speak. When this was supposed to be heard the last week, I think it was Representative Ritchie that told me, I've spoken to so many people now, that this bill had so many people in opposition to it that were planning on speaking, that just this one bill was likely to take the entire committee time. And they have an hour and 30 minutes. And Representative Ritchie said he felt like the entire committee time, the majority of the committee time, was going to be dedicated to hearing testimony and discussing this bill. But I will encourage anyone else, let's see, thanks. We'll work on this. Can the speakers coordinate their points? My testimony I've already posted. It was posted back last week when it was supposed to be heard then. And so I made a post and listed all the points that I was going to be making. Those are still points that I'm going to be bringing to the forefront. These points I actually addressed in the article that I wrote last week for the Borough Pulse, which was released today, published today. But I think, one thing, again, is not to focus on the homeschooling aspect of this, because they're trying to just discredit us by saying, well, the homeschool portion of this is off the table. It doesn't, affect homeschoolers anymore. Y'all shouldn't be concerned about this. End of story. So we have to make sure that when we're addressing them, that we're not discussing the homeschool aspect of it anymore, but focusing on the other points. Anyone else have any questions? But I know that there were, I think, 10 people coming from East Tennessee that were on the agenda to speak. Now, if they'll come back on April the 5th, I don't know, but I do know that all of their stuff will roll over too. So if they plan on coming, they would still be on the agenda as well. But Eric, if you're still on here and you have questions about what I'm going to say when I speak, I'll be happy to coordinate that with you. I have unwritten echoes. Knowing that each person's speaking time is limited, I'm willing to work to coordinate so all the points are heard. Yes, I actually timed mine multiple times to make sure that I would get everything in, but there are some ways around that time limit too, and I'll be happy to let you know the ways around that as well, so that you can extend your time. Does anyone else have any questions? But, again, I'll just reiterate that the biggest points take away from this live tonight is that everyone needs to contact the Education Administration Committee, everyone on that committee, and also make sure everyone that can, please show up April the 5th at 9 a.m. for this committee meeting. And don't forget, Cameron Sexton isn't on the Education Administration Committee, but this is his bill. So make sure you contact him as well. Thanks for your work on this. I'll keep an eye on the page and send it to others. You're welcome. You know, we all have to work together. I appreciate everyone sharing what you've shared, all the hard work that everyone's doing. You guys have been great as far as calling and showing up at the Capitol and doing all the legwork, because this is what it takes for them to take us seriously and for us to make sure that we protect our freedoms. I will tell you that the interview that I did this morning with the Mache executive director, when they went to the Capitol, they had a lot of people there, probably 1,000 homeschool families show up, and they were able to defeat their legislation. And so he encouraged me this morning to encourage all of you that anytime that there's legislation that threatens homeschool freedoms or parental rights, just make sure everyone sticks together and we work really hard to make sure that we continue to preserve our rights and our freedoms. A lot of homeschoolers, especially the new generation homeschoolers, we're finishing up our 19th year, so we've been doing this a long time. But there are people that were doing it in the 80s when it wasn't legal. They were doing it when at the very beginning when it was legalized. So lots of those families, you know, they homeschool their children under the threat of going to jail, having their children taken away from them. But you get kind of complacent throughout the years when your freedoms have never been in jeopardy and you've never had to experience any of those trials. So the younger generation homeschoolers have always had the benefits of everything those pioneer homeschool families worked for. And so we have to continually educate new homeschool families about how and what we have to do in order to make sure that we are preserving those freedoms. So if there's not any more questions, I'm going to get off here. I don't want to keep everyone too late tonight. But keep up the calling. Call everyone on the committee. Call Cameron Sexton. You can send emails if you want to, but please call as well. We want to flood them with calls. And then we all need to show up April the 5th. We need to get as many people there as possible, even more than what we had originally planned. We need to show up in large numbers so that they understand that we value our freedoms in Tennessee and our parental rights in Tennessee, and those are not up for vote. All right, guys, I'm going to get off here. I hope everyone has a great night. If you have questions, as long as my phone's charged, I'll answer them, and then I'll plug it in and charge it. And if I don't get to you, I'll get back to you. I hope, again, that you all just continue to pray that this goes well and that the scales are removed from the eyes of all of those that are confused or don't understand this or aren't educated, that they will take the time to do the research that they need to do, and that we will all stick together and do what we need to do to make sure that we continue to fight for our rights here in Tennessee. I hope everyone has a good night. I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye-bye.